Hello, this is Daniel from growyourmusicstudio.com, and with me today is Jon Gaertner, who owns a studio in Nashville that has a very unique story. And part of the reason why I wanted to talk to Jon is he's doing something that I have made some initial forays into, and that is teaching without a studio location. And Jon has done such a fantastic job of doing this in Nashville over the last, going on 2 decades, that I wanted to sit down with him and talk to him about his experiences doing that, not only for those who watch videos or read my blog, but for me as well. I fully intend to learn some things here today from Jon as well. So, Jon, thanks for taking time out of your afternoon and talking to me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's just start at the very beginning. When did you start Mobile Music Academy?
In a couple months, we will hit the 10-year mark.
10-year mark, yeah.
For businesses is like, that's an exciting time, right? You're like, all right, there's a milestone.
Sure. Yeah, certainly. Now, before Mobile Music Academy, were you teaching? Did you have previous experience before that in running a studio or anything of that nature?
Yeah. So I started out, I guess, like most music majors. I started teaching when I was a senior in college, and I liked it. And then when I got out of college, it was like, what am I going to do with my life? Right. Oh my gosh. I actually ended up with an arm injury. And so it really changed my path a little bit. Yeah. I was planning more of the college professor route, and that went away really quickly. I tried, I waited, I saw doctors. So I spent a couple years going through all that mess. And I was teaching some lessons and selling pianos. So I was doing stuff in piano, but, so I was doing all that. And eventually I just kind of got frustrated and threw up my hands and said, yeah, I'm done. And I walked away from it all, for probably the next decade. Tried to do anything and everything that I could. And I just wasn't happy anywhere. Kind of hit one of those points where the crisis point, I'm in my 30s. What in the world am I doing? I'm in a dead end job. And I was like, all right, it's time to go back to teaching. All my family wants me to be teaching. Maybe I should just listen to them. So I started teaching, but it's like, I don't want to teach out of my home. Yeah. So I was doing this other job and I was teaching in people's homes, just a few. And I was like, man, this is okay. I like this. And I was like, I need to find more students. So I looked around and I was like, all right, well, I found this company on the web and it looks like they set up students with teachers. And so I called them. They're a big national company. And after 20 minutes of talking to them, I hung up the phone and I sat there for a second. I might've said a quick little prayer, but I called my wife and I was like, this is ridiculous. She's like, how'd the call go? I was like, it was fine, but I can do this. And I was like, we just need to figure out how, but I can do this. I was like, in fact, I'm pretty sure I can do this in Nashville a lot better than they can. That might be cocky, but I was like, I understand the area. Yeah. And I didn't realize how important that statement was. Now I understand that much, much more. Yeah. Man. Understanding the area. That's a big, big one. When you talk about in-home lessons, traffic patterns, all those sorts of things, the logistics of it. Yeah, because I've tried doing lessons in other areas and we've done it to some amount of success, a little bit, but it's tough. Yeah. And man, that really resonates with me. And I just have 2 quick thoughts, just kind of in the conversation here, that I started out because when I graduated from college, I immediately went into teaching and I was living with my parents. I didn't want to take a real job, as my dad called it. Daniel, when are you going to get a real job? Yeah. So I was 22 and living with my parents. I didn't want to take, that job. I wanted to basically go straight, try to get as many students as I could right at the beginning so I could go get my own place. And because I was living with my parents, I ended up doing mobile lessons. It was just me. I didn't, have any other teachers like you did with MMA. And man, I really understand what you're talking about there, because I know I could probably name all the subdivision names within a 10-mile radius of me
where I'm sitting right now. And it's just like understanding the area. That's incredibly huge. And then something similar but not related is the idea of nobody understands Nashville the way you understand Nashville. Nobody understands the South Side of Indianapolis the way I understand. Outside marketers, and I know this is a real change, shifting gears here, but outside marketers don't understand our industry the way we understand our industry.
Exactly.
And I've gotten so much bad advice from general marketers, before that I really kind of took the reins for myself and kind of control all that for my studio. Yeah. and it's usually not ill-intentioned. It's just they don't understand. They don't understand what we're doing. They don't understand our customers. They don't understand, a lot of things like that. And while some general advice is good, some is actually really bad and can cost you a lot of money. So
I think this is part of knowing your market too. I don't know how it is Indianapolis. You and I did a little bit of stuff before, and I think you even realized Nashville is incredibly competitive in the music lessons business. It makes sense to a degree, but I think it's even more than you even first think about, how incredibly competitive just from the local end. And then you bring in the monsters, through the national type of stuff that I think of as like the evil Darth Vaders in the world. But
and to kind of follow up on that, the one thing I remember when kind of doing some research about the Nashville area is that the costs to run ads in Nashville is about double what it is here. Right. In some cases, in some areas, it ran higher than places I saw in Manhattan. High competition.
I mean, it's great, and that's helpful in finding teachers sometimes and all that, is that there's a lot of musicians around here.
As you get to talking a little bit more about teachers, do you mind to share a little bit, current numbers to the degree that you feel comfortable doing that? Students, how many teachers are you working with? Do you have like a management staff that manages all those people? I'm just curious, just, bullet points there.
Usually students were in the 300s. So just kind of depending on some factors, mid 300s or so. And it's a little bit different. Whereas group, you could take 300 students and crank it out between 2 teachers. The in-home thing is different. So we're in the 40s with the teachers.
Ooh,
and teachers will have 3 or 4 students. They'll have 10 students. They'll have 15 students. Every teacher is different. And there's a lot of factors that play into that.
I think the number one question I have when you talk about all those teachers, and just having, because, you do the math, that's about 7.5 students per teacher. And these aren't teachers. These are gigging musicians that are doing this on the side, so to speak. So 7.5 students per teacher, that's maybe a little bit lower, a student number per teacher. And so my point in all of that is just to say this: how are you finding so many teachers, and keeping those? I'm just fascinated with that. Like, what are you doing?
The funniest thing 10 years in looking at it is things have changed a lot, and you have to be willing to change with them. The first teacher I ever brought on was a guitar teacher. So we do more than piano. We do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So I was teaching and he was teaching. And the first couple months, that's what it was. And then people started finding me. So there's a couple different things. One, that is a nice thing of being out there for a while. We have pretty good SEO. So for people who don't understand what that means, search engine optimization, getting on the first page of Google. So we've always been there. I lucked out on that in the beginning. Grace of God right there. We've always been there. We were early enough in. But so a lot of it, I just get contacted by the teachers. I have teachers now. We have enough teachers. That's the upside of having a lot of teachers, is that I can either call them and say, hey, put the word out, or, email out or whatever. And I can also, and they also just plain refer other teachers to me, which is great. That lets me know we're doing things the right way when teachers are telling friends or colleagues, hey, this is a great place to go and try.
You've got a good reputation. And what's funny about that in the word of mouth sense is that it functions a little bit like just marketing for students in a studio, in that so many teachers say, hey, word of mouth has always worked for us. And my thought has been, I could have filled my studio to the level that it is on word of mouth alone. It would have taken longer. to me, I think of, okay, getting the word out. Marketing helps get the word out faster. So there's more mouths saying those words. In the same way as you got bigger and got more teachers, you just had more of that going on. That totally makes sense. Just out of curiosity, I mean, again, just kind of quick bullet points, like, or what are maybe like your top 3 sites or methods, just bam, 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 1, 2, and 3, other than word of
Yes, Indeed has taken the place for me of Craigslist.
Okay.
And a lot of people go, oh my God, Craigslist. Well, Craigslist, like I think a lot of things, I think even marketing regionally can be very different. So, and things can kind of go in and out of fashion. And I think, a few years ago, Craigslist was really in fashion. It was something where we got students off of Craigslist and we got good teachers off of Craigslist, posting in the job sections. And for a while it was all free, but when I think about it, last 2 piano teachers I think I brought on, both came from Indeed. And they're doing great. I'm really happy with both of them. So you can definitely get great stuff. So that's probably one of them. And, just thinking about what contacts do I have? And if you think about that, you're like, all right, do I have contacts at music stores? Hopefully.
Yeah.
That's going to help you business-wise anyways. And what you need to do with music stores is make sure it's not just one way. Send people to those music stores and try to get them to say you sent them. If you have a current teacher base, that's definitely one. I let them know, hey, I'm looking. And sometimes if I'm really in a jam, it's not happening with teachers, I'll put an incentive on it. I'll say, hey, if this teacher sticks with us for 3 months, $100 finder's fee.
Yeah.
Because if I can get a great teacher, eventually $100 is going to pay for itself. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's like a marketing fee, right? So, but you do want to put that some kind of stipulation on there that they got to be with us for 3 months, kind of give them a period that you can make sure, they're who you want.
Yeah. That's huge. I like that. It reminds me of a saying or a phrase. Your network is your net worth. And I mean, it definitely sounds like that, is kind of holding true for you. And I mean, along those same lines, we've been talking about how do you attract the teachers? I mean, 300 students, that's nothing to sneeze at. How are you attracting those students? Like maybe we're going down a little bit of a different channel here, but what are you doing marketing wise, again, to the extent that you feel comfortable talking about that? What are your biggest channels? What are your, what's bringing those in? Also, and this is really interesting, since a lot of those, so many teachers that are teaching a single teacher studio, the tuition is just coming to them. You also have to factor into the account that your cost structure for advertising is a little bit different. You're bringing in a certain amount per student, but most of that tuition is going to the teacher that's paying it. So you have to be a little bit more careful and measure a little bit more in terms of what you can reasonably spend to get one student. So I'm all ears. I'm curious what your experience is.
Yeah, and this is probably the part where we're talking about for like someone who is in the music lessons business, the marketing thing, they're much better at marketing the music lesson stuff than someone who's outside of the music lesson business. They don't really understand the same thing. In this respect, it's a little bit backwards because people will think about, they go, oh, well, this marketing campaign, cost me $400 and shoot, man, if I get 4 students off that, I'm going to make that up in no time, right? Or whatever the case might be. I can get 2 students and make that up in no time. And I got a huge return on investment over a period of, whatever it might be, 2 years or whatever.
2 years, 5 years. Yeah.
Right. So, but let's say you're making $10 off of that lesson as a business after you pay the teacher. Then you got to pay everything else.
Yeah.
And those things start adding up. And don't forget about Mr. Taxman. So, and the accountants and everything else. But that's a super important thing to keep in mind, is that getting that ROI really changes the numbers. Margins is very, very important. It took me a while to learn that. I used to say at the beginning, I'm just a piano teacher winging this. And it was a little bit of a joke, but they say there's truth in every joke. There was a lot of truth in that. And I would say by the grace of God, because by the grace of God, I did make through some stumbles.
So pushing back though to the original question, what is that main driver of students for you? Like what is that main marketing channel you're tapping to keep it full? Other than word of mouth, because once you get to a certain thing, is it SEO? Is there paid marketing that you're doing? I'm curious.
SEO has been a major factor for us. The best thing about SEO, when you have it, when you're on that first page, is hopefully it's costing you nothing. In the past, I did pay some for some SEO company type stuff. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, nor do I.
I realized that wasn't the way to go, because there's a lot of things you can do wrong with that, rather than just trying to put out good content, a good website. I'm watching all your stuff. I'm still trying to figure out how to best do digital ads.
Yeah.
They've never been great for me, and I can't really explain why to that. So that's something I'm digging into much more now. We always did print. And so probably money-wise, where we sunk the most money in, there was a good, vibrant parent magazine here in town that we have always done stuff with. And that's probably a regional thing as to how good is that. And even that, I'm starting to look hard at. I mean, you're right, print is kind of dying.
Yeah.
And it's expensive. But again, you can cultivate relationships inside of that and do stuff at times and get some breaks. So that's a big thing with all this, is a little hard on the front side, but off a little bit of time. If you can create a relationship with another business, you can usually work some stuff out. We even did stuff for trade back in the day. We taught many of this parent magazine's children. So
oh wow.
That came out the very first meeting I ever had. She's like, my daughter would like to take. And we started doing some trade outs and some things, that brought the cost down, and we were able to
that's brilliant
really from that.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of ways of coming out of that. I've tried a little bit of everything. I've done radio. And radio is an interesting thing, because the first time I ever did it, I did it with a small Christian station here. And it was awesome. It was fantastic. I think it was like $800. I got like 22 students. And that was like middle of the year or something. It wasn't even like a huge, like
a rush period.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, that next summer, I got all set. I saved up money, and we went for one of the biggest radio stations in town, the one that all the moms listen to, because that's what we want to talk to, right? Dropped like $4,000 on it.
Wow.
And it was set for back to school. It was like August, September. I didn't get a single call.
Wow.
So that's the other thing with marketing. Always use money you have, not money you think you're going to have.
You're going to get, right.
Yeah. So that you can just kind of chalk it up.
Yeah.
But my overarching strategy is just to try to get as many different things out there as I can afford. So it's not like one certain thing. We'll do some stuff in the magazine. We got SEO. We'll do all sorts of little internet things, social media, whatever. Every single way that you can get it out there. Any kind of guerrilla marketing. In the beginning, I haven't done this, but in the beginning, I'd pay a couple college kids and myself. We'd be walking around the neighborhoods handing out flyers. But yeah, for me, no overarching, like this is the number one thing. It's just like, let's get it out every which way possible that we can afford, and then analyze that and try to keep. The other thing I think is really hard is tracking how everything's coming in.
Yes.
Really important, but hard, because you're busy and you're not keeping all your things, and you got to get the people who are answering the phones. How'd you hear about us? How'd you hear about us? You got to get that in the conversation for us. But for us, for the main thing, more and more, how'd you hear about us was that they just find us off of Google search and or the phone, asking Siri. I think that's becoming more and more how people are
Voice
finding
search,
things.
absolutely.
Yeah, voice search, getting on all these local things. So for everybody to understand, there's more than just Google. There's the Google local part.
That's a good one.
So Google has that, Bing has that,
Yeah,
Yahoo doesn't know what it's doing, but it's kind of has something
it
like
hasn't
that.
for 20 years.
Yeah, somehow it's still out there, but I have no idea how. But there's for those people who do Bing, I don't know who those people are that use Bing, but it's out there. I think maybe
Yeah,
that's where the Windows phones voice search stuff
you're
is.
absolutely right. And
That's
I'll
why
tell
you're
you,
on there, is for that.
yeah,
Right.
20% of search and paid traffic in requests, 17 to 20% is Bing. So if you aren't on Bing, and I'm not saying this to you per se, but
Right.
just anyone listening, if you aren't on Bing, you're missing perhaps 20% of your audience because they won't use Google, or they won't
Right.
naturally use Google over the course of time. They might go to Google search at their computer, but if they happen to be asking while they're on a Windows phone, or if they have a Microsoft computer and it's search that's built into the operating system runs through Bing, they're not seeing you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's all the different maps out there. I just use Google Maps now, or
Mm-hmm.
Maps on my iPhone. But you want to get on all those things, make sure you have a listing on there. A lot of times it's free. So
Yeah.
go ahead and get on there. And there's cheap ones. I found out yesterday, and this is crazy. Get Lessons Now.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, Get Lessons Now was like one of the ways that teachers, it was like one of these teacher referral sites. You'd pay like $50 a year and you'd get profile on there. And every once in a blue moon, you might get someone interested. But it was really helpful from a sense of Google finding you, and another way to increase your SEO. That was part of my SEO strategy, all those sorts of things. I got a refund from them yesterday, and I was like, what's this about? And I was like, oh man, you gotta be kidding me. And I go over to it, ding, ding, ding. Yep, they closed down. And I couldn't believe it, because I was like, they have been out here forever. And this got my mind thinking, as I've been thinking about this conversation coming up, how much things have changed in 10 years.
Yeah.
And how it continually changes, and how important it is that you're on blogs like yours, that you're reading, you're watching, you're doing all these things, because you have to change with the times.
Yeah.
There's so many people that are like, I'm not going to change with the times, and I'm going to do it my way. And you know what? If your way is working for you, great. But you can blink your eyes and suddenly your way isn't working anymore.
Yeah.
It's so that concept, and that's why I was big into doing print and this and that and everything. And I've just never had luck with digital ads. I woke myself up in the summer and said, you know what? You did lots of digital stuff, but Google ads, Facebook ads, all that kind of stuff, I just never did all that well with them. So I just stayed away from it.
Sure.
Now I'm like, no, it's time to change.
Yeah.
And so I'm digging in more to that, to understand it, to create give myself a better chance on those, right?
Yeah.
You have to have things a certain way to make those work.
Yeah. And I will say, as we're kind of closing up here, because we've been at this for a little while, I really echo what you're saying there. Toys R Us just declared bankruptcy, and they saw the writing on the wall. They saw over the course of the last 20 years how more and more retail traffic was going through Amazon, and people like the fact that they don't have to walk into the store, fight crowds, especially at holiday times and this sort of thing. They could have created their own online brand. They could have created their own, but I don't know. It's probably different for different people and different companies, but probably hubris, it's tough to turn a ship. It's tough to change ways that you're stuck in. And I will even tell you that when I started writing the blog, and this is only 18 months ago that I wrote this article, but I it was kind of almost a point of pride that I said that the only advertising that I was using was Google AdWords. And I wasn't even maxing out the budget that I could max out and still keeping my studio full. But even over the last year, I have dedicated more and more time personally to getting more into social media marketing. I had not run a Facebook ad in 2 years until this year. I didn't need to. I was getting everything I needed from Google. But I have started experimenting with some of Facebook's new ad types, some of their most recent ad products they put out. I've started looking into influencer marketing, which is really, really out there stuff. There's probably not 1 in 1,000 studios that are doing influencer marketing, but looking into actually going to local people who have Instagram followings or YouTube followings around our local area and actually paying them for mentions on their channel. And I've been looking in and doing research at finding people, like a mom who has a lot of followers in our local area, and reaching out and finding ways to make a mention on her channel worth her while, either monetarily or giving her kids lessons or things of that nature. But you are 100% right. What you are doing will work for a certain amount of time, and the market changes. And I think you have to adapt to that. Before we close out, I just had one more question for you.
Okay.
Who should and shouldn't start, an in-home lesson program? What
Question.
Immediately comes to your mind?
So, forgive me if I offend, but I think a lot of teachers, they like to micromanage. And unless you set up your teachers as employees, which you're probably not going to do.
Yeah.
You're going to have contractors. You need to treat them as contractors, which means they are doing the lesson. They are choosing how to do it. They're choosing when to do it. They're basically doing everything. At the end of the day, an in-home music lessons company, our primary, we have 2 primary customers. We have the student and we have the teacher.
Yeah.
To the student, we're finding them a good teacher. To the teacher, we're finding them students. So in a sense, we're probably more of a marketing company. And so get that in your mind. Look, I used to teach a lot of students. I don't anymore. What I do, I just do for my own enjoyment. If you want to get into this, I guess if you want to get to a higher level of it, if we're a higher level, I don't know, but be aware that you're not teaching all these students. They're not your students. I don't see, nor have I ever seen, a huge percentage of the students we have ever taught. I've never heard them play. We will throw recitals, and we'll have 60 to 80 students participate in any given recital day, which is good, but it's not near 320, 350, right? So, and they tend to be the same ones every time.
Right.
So I don't see a huge percentage of them, and they might take for years, and they're happy with that, and that's okay, and that's fine. But those teachers who need to have that, right? Because there's going to be a certain amount that need to have that. I would say this probably isn't for you. I keep my office at home, and you know what I would also say about that keeping your office at home thing. That's another thing that's actually a little tricky with getting the word out about you and marketing. The one upside of having a studio where people go to you, especially like in a store center, you can see it.
Yep.
Really hard to get your name out there sometimes. We get calls all the time. Oh man, I never heard of you. I'm like, awesome. But anyway, so the teacher, so that's one of the main things is your ability to let go of lessons that you weren't teaching. And to not micromanage these teachers. Your important thing is finding students, finding good teachers, doing great interviews, all those sorts of things that then make the business run smoothly and go on autopilot. You find a great teacher who's going to be consistent and communicate well, then that means they're going to do the lesson well. It may not be exactly what you want, but they're going to do it well. And they're going to handle themselves professionally. And that should be autopilot for you at that point. And you can just do random check-ins with the parent to see how everything's going. And for those people, and I would say even starting out and stuff, think about everything on the front end. How do you want this set up? Both from the legal perspective, but from how are you going to do billing? Because there's a lot of different ways to do it. And and when you get other teachers involved, that becomes more complex because you got to be able to pay them as well. So you need to think through all these different things and go, am I willing to do this? Am I willing to change from being a piano teacher, from being a guitar teacher, to being a business owner?
Yeah.
And that is a big change. I love it. And I put on the music teacher cap a couple hours a week and take off the other cap. And that's great. And then the rest of the time, I'm a business owner. And so I think about things from a business side.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to do that, I think, if you're going to be kind of long-term successful with this.
I think the biggest thing that stands out to me there is just the idea that kind of that insight there that we're basically a marketing company. It's possible that someone could, do something that you're doing that has never taken a lesson in their life, that, they would just do this as a business opportunity almost, where they're connecting students and teachers and they're kind of in the middle, providing a good service to both sides. Doesn't even necessarily require that. I think, of course, you other teachers that are doing this model, being in the music field, it in the same way that being in Nashville helps you know traffic patterns, all that, being in the music field, being a musician yourself, helps you identify who's a good teacher, who's not, that sort of thing.
That's the part, right?
Yeah. But, the insight that you're basically becoming a marketing company, if you were to do something like this, your marketing game does need to be on point. You need to understand it. You need to understand, a lot of those foundational principles of marketing, foundational principles of administrating something that big. And I think this is going to be really valuable to folks. Really appreciate you taking time out.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can just say real quick, if anybody, again, this isn't a paid thing. If anybody wants to join our little group where we talk about in-home lessons and help each other out and all that kind of stuff, just search In-Home Music Lessons Mastermind group, I think.
On Facebook.
Group, but ask for request to invite on Facebook, and we'll do that.
That's great. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Jon.
All right. Thank you.